Try out a random act of generosity today. See how it makes you feel inside. And imagine an entire life filled with that. Yeah, we back with another reflection on that TDV. That TDV, DTDV. That the Daily Vedantic. Some things, some acronyms are just never supposed to be spelled out. Automatic teller machine. Today's reflection doesn't have anything to do with acronyms. No, it does not. But it does have to do with a question I'm going to pose your way. Think of someone generous. Think of someone that you just know is a generous spirit in your life. Someone that you know, or an acquaintance, someone in your past, someone in your present that's just, man, what a generous spirit that person has. Now, when you imagine that person, do they seem like a happy person to you? This philosophy will go so far as to say, you cannot find a generous, unhappy person in the world. That's actually quite reasonable. It only takes about 30 seconds to think about our exposure to generous people and how, man, they really are. I don't mean like people with agendas that donate money, but then they're going to use it as something in some selfish agenda. I don't mean, which I've done before, by the way. I've given money and then knowing that, okay, now I'll be close to this project and be able to weave it towards what we're working on. I did that with my last company. I made a donation knowing, okay, they'll be able to help us out with event space for when we need to do events. So I ain't above that, or at least now I would hope to think I am, but certainly wasn't in my past. So a lot of people give knowing, political contributions, perfect example, where it is absolutely tied to agenda. So I don't mean someone that's just like, because they gave a check, they're generous. I mean an actual generous spirit where you just know, yeah, that's the kind of person that you get a flat tire, they will stop what they're doing to come help you. You have an issue, you're in the hospital, they're the kind of person that drops what they're doing and comes to the hospital. And the question is that person, when you think about them, close your eyes and think about them, are they generally happier than most other people you know? So like I said, this philosophy will say you cannot find a generous, unhappy person in the world. You can't find an unselfish, is the exact words that will be used. You cannot find an unselfish, an unhappy person. Similarly, and that, like I said, that could be 30 seconds of imagination, or really just scrolling through your internal Rolodex, and your experience might map to that. This one maybe takes a little bit more than 30 seconds of imagination, but it is said just as explicitly that you also cannot find a happy, selfish person. But in the same vein, imagine the selfish people you know of in your life. Can you think of one that's selfish and you would describe to your friends as, yeah, that's one of the happiest people I know? Would they map to one of the most selfish people you know and one of the happiest? Isn't that an interesting link between generosity, giving, an act that we usually associate with external actions, and yet internally there seems to be a strong correlation. maybe even causation. But at the very least, strong correlation to them being happy internally, even if they are parting with their time, their money, their skill sets, whatever it is they're being generous with. This actually maps to recent research in neuroscience that shows that when we give, we release this. Let's say there's one donut left in an experiment, and you choose not to take it, you give it to the other person across the table from you, and our bodies release oxytocin, the neurochemical of satisfaction, of feeling safe. But when there's a donut in between two people and you choose to take it, your body releases vasopressin, a neurochemical of fear, anxiousness, feeling like they might take it from me. I've just severed a social tie, and now I know it, they know it subconsciously, and now I consciously know I have something that, well, I want, and so I'm projecting they probably want. Now they're going to come after it. You have safety and satisfaction with one person, that's one hell of a beautiful state to feel. And there's fear and anxiousness in the other person, even if they have momentary sugar on their lips. Giving makes us feel safe. Taking makes us feel fearful. Building, offering, fortifying a social tie with our community. It doesn't just make us feel safe, it actually creates bonds that improve our safety. Severing those bonds actually does remove. Imagine if you have 10 neighbors all looking out for you. That's 10 extra sets of eyes, hands, legs, feet that can help out. Versus you've wronged all 10 because you've chosen to be selfish in each interaction. And now you're like, man, I got to worry about strangers, but I also kind of have to worry about the blowback from the selfishness with my 10 neighbors that, well, they kind of know I was a dick back then. But even better than the mental exercise of trying to scroll through that mental Rolodex, trying to find one unhappy, unselfish person, or equally trying to find one happy, selfish person. It's a valuable exercise, but even better, try out. As I always say on the Daily Vedantic, try it out, kick the tires. Don't just take a principle within this philosophy for granted, try it out. Try out a random act of generosity today. See how it makes you feel inside. And imagine an entire life filled with that. Or try a random act of selfishness. See how you feel inside. And imagine an entire life of that. It is so paradoxical that satisfaction, safety, peace, bliss comes from absolute generosity, giving away. As Swamiji will say often in his lectures, life is to give. Because our natural state, according to this philosophy, our natural state is peace, bliss, paripurna, all full, completeness. And if you were all full, if you were complete, then you'd have no reason to keep in the first place. And every time that we give as a message to ourselves, I don't need this. Someone else might, but I don't. Because I'm actually quite full. And imagine an entire life of thinking and reiterating, reinforcing, I'm full. I'm enough without this. Others might need this more than me. I have enough. And as Alan Watts would often say, enough is as good as a feast. That's today's reflection on the Daily Vedantic. We'll see you next time.